Hello. Today we will be looking at how to add custom effect and motion animations in SRPG Studio. There are a lot of different types of animation in SRPG Studio, but mostly they fall into map animations and real battle animations. In this video, we'll be looking at the real battle animations, which covers effects and motions. Effects are, as their name suggests, the effects that are shown when things like spells are cast. Less clearly named though, are motions, which are the character's actual movements. Motions can be a little bit complicated though, so we're going to look at effects first. In a previous video, I recolored one of the lightning spell effects so that it was red, so we'll start by adding that into our game. First, we need to make sure that the image file is saved in the game's project folder, specifically in the effects folder. If you want to use the same animation for multiple things, you'll need to save it multiple times so that it can be found in each folder that uses it, as SRPG Studio can only look in very specific places for its resources. Once your file is in the right place, you can import it into SRPG Studio using the Resources tab. As a note, it will actually be in graphics, rather than animations. Animations in this case are .sani files and I don't actually know what those are. We're not going to be using those today. But we are working on animations, I promise. On that note, actually, I should explain how sprite sheets work. Our animation is made up of a sequence of images saved together in a specified format so that SRPG Studio knows to read each image one after the other in a sequence. As such, if the images are the wrong size, it can end up cutting them up in weird places and giving you a psychedelic mess. If you want to make your own sprite sheets from scratch, you'll want to use the precise measurements that SRPG Studio is expecting, or possibly find a way to change the parameters in config. I'll link the wiki with the formats and sizes in the video description. With the new effect imported, let's make a new spellbook to add it to. You do this in exactly the same way that you would if you were using SRPG Studio's provided assets, but when it comes to choosing your effect, you want to scroll down to the bottom where the original label is. Except our image isn't listed here yet. I'm sorry, that was a bit cheeky of me, but I thought it would be the best way to explain what's going on here. Currently, what we have imported is only the sprite sheet, it isn't the actual animation, so because this option is looking for an animation, the image we've provided can't be read by it. We need to change it into an animation first. But don't worry, this is actually a very simple process. The animation menu is the little film strip icon found next to the database, and although you probably won't use it very often, right now it is vital for what we're trying to do. In this menu, you'll see all of SRPG Studio's existing animations, as well as two options for adding your own. In this case, we're adding an effect. Here, you can load in your sprite sheet. See how it's turned your image into a series of frames now. You can play your animation here to check how it looks too, so you can spot any issues before you get as far as play testing. Now that we've made our effect into an animation, we can go back to our spellbook and add it in. And that's that, really. I was glad to find out it was much less fiddly than I was expecting it to be, although the same can't quite be said about motions. For the most part, motions work very similarly to effects. They get their own folder in the project directory, you import them the same way, and you convert them into actual animations using the animation menu in the same way as well, just with the motions option instead. The tricky part is in the details. Characters in SRPG Studio come in 3 class types. Fighters, archers and mages. Each class type can only use animations that have been declared for its type. Even if you make a compound character, which can use multiple types, you can still only select motions that are set for that category. This is because the 3 types have different naming conventions that allow SRPG Studio to tell them apart. You can see all 3 types here. Fighters don't use any special prefixes, but archers use hashtag and mages use $. If you have a custom animation that you want to be usable across multiple types, you'll need to save it separately for each one, using that type's naming convention. That way, when you add it to your character, it will appear in each of the lists you want to use. So, that's one thing to bear in mind with regards to motions, but I'm afraid there are a few more too. If you save out any of the existing motion images, you'll see that it will actually give you multiple versions. This is because the motion is used by player, enemy and ally units, and as such it has a colorway for each one. And the naming of these variations is very important too. The enemy version must be -A and the ally version must be -B, or it won't be able to find the right one when it needs it. If it can't find it, then it will simply leave it empty, and your character will become invisible. So if you're making your own motion, make sure to provide the color variations for every unit that might need it. There is one other thing to be aware when it comes to color variations, but this one is at least optional. It's possible to set specific color variants to specific characters, which can be found in the Unit Details option on your character's entry in the database. This will appear as -C in the set of images saved out in the previous example. I haven't tested it, but I believe so long as you use -C and onwards, and not -A or -B, you should be able to add a large number of optional color variations. When I have a variation to test it with, I will see how high it can go and let you know. Finally, there doesn't seem to be any way to set separate animations for different characters of the same class. So if you want your protagonist to have a unique, special attack animation, your best bet seems to be to create a copy of the class you want and have that class be used only by your protagonist. Fortunately, the database doesn't mind you having multiple classes with the same name, so there won't be any visible signs to the player, but bear in mind that any changes you make to the class stats or growth will need to be copied across to both versions. So far, this has worked fine for me, but if I find a better way, I will be sure to let you know. Unless anyone in the comments already knows, I am very happy to stand corrected. I think though, for now, that's all I have on this topic. I hope it will clear some things up for people, and will help you add your own animations to your game without too much trouble. If you'd like me to elaborate on anything though, please just let me know. Otherwise, the next thing for us to look at should probably be those map animations I mentioned earlier, but I'll need to double check my notes for those. Anyway, that's all from me for today. Catch you next time.